Hi, this is Drew Vazinpour. I'm here with attorney Parviz Malakouti. Parviz, what's up?
How are you, Drew?
Pretty good. So we just got back from Tijuana, right? We did some volunteer work down there.
Kind of just got back. Yeah, I guess it was almost a month ago.
Yeah, so what made you decide to invite me to volunteer in Tijuana?
Well, basically the plight of the migrants and the caravanners. I'm sure a lot of people have heard and been paying attention on the news. Basically about the migrants and the caravanners coming up from Honduras and El Salvador to the southern border. There's a real crisis in Tijuana with caravanners basically backlogged there, stuck in Tijuana, homeless on the street. And so it's just a really bad situation. And of course, being a person that has compassion for immigrants, and of course being an immigration lawyer, I thought it would be a good experience for me, and I thought that you would get something out of it too.
What was your ultimate goal going down there? What did you hope to accomplish?
My ultimate goal was actually to help some people, some intending immigrants, with their credible fear interview, which is the first step for applying for asylum at the border. Um, I basically thought that I could go down there and make a small dent in basically the big lack of immigration representation that's needed down there. And then secondly, just to be honest, out of curiosity, I wanted to see what's going on with my own two eyes. It seems like we're reading about immigration on the news every darn day, if not every,
Hmm.
if not twice or three times a day.
What is a credible fear interview, and how does it relate to asylum claims?
Sure. Well, basically, anybody who is presenting themselves at the border that intends to apply for asylum has to first pass what's called a credible fear interview. If they pass the interview, it doesn't mean that are going to be granted asylum. It just means they get to go to the next step. And the credible fear interview basically is just to determine whether they have a prima facie asylum claim. That's a claim that is basically something that could be an asylum claim.
So when we got there, we what was the name of the group that we volunteered with?
We volunteered with Al Otro Lado, which of course means in Spanish on the other side. And I personally had a great experience volunteering with them. You were also there, Drew. What did
Right.
you think about the 2 days that we spent down there?
Yeah, it was a really enriching experience. I got to meet a bunch of people, like-minded volunteers. I got to speak with some migrant families and tried to help them out as best as I could. But of course, you speaking Spanish were able to consult with many more families than I was.
Yeah, I mean, it was I guess a little bit easier not having to be paired up with an interpreter. But regardless, there were a lot of people down there doing good work that weren't even consulting with families at all. I mean, as you saw, there were people that were moving food around. There were people that had medical training that were going
Hmm.
out to shelters in tent cities to check up on people. So that's actually something that really surprised me about Al Otro Lalo. I thought it was going to be pretty much only legal assistance, but it actually is a pretty multifaceted organization down there. Actually, Drew, I wanted to talk real quickly about one of the things that's going on down there, which is basically that people have to wait now in order to be given a credible fear interview. And this is something new. This is something new under the Trump administration, administered in November 2018. It used to be that people come to the border, they present themselves, they say, I want to apply for asylum, I fear to return to my country, and they're taken right away for a credible fear interview. The idea being that if they are in danger, they need to be, spirited away, so that they can immediately have an opportunity to present their claim. Now, what has happened is that under the Trump administration, Customs and Border Patrol has stopped people from being able to immediately get a credible fear interview. And instead, it created this list, this kind of, in my opinion and the opinion of others, an illegal list, whereby somebody takes a number, kind of like going at a deli, and they have to wait until their number is called just to be able to apply for asylum at the border.
Mm.
And people, I think, Drew, when we were down there, people were applying roughly, or excuse me, waiting roughly 3 to 4 weeks from the time
Hmm.
that they presented themselves to try to get that number. The numbers are called every day in the morning at a place called El Chaparral, which is basically a pedestrian crossing between Mexico and the United States. So the effect this has had is that people having to wait. These people have already been traveling for weeks on a caravan.
Hmm.
A lot of them don't have anything. They don't have money. They're escaping danger. Some of them are, basically in desperate situations, and now they have to wait an additional 3 to 4 weeks in Tijuana before they can even try to make the asylum claim.
Yeah, where do these people stay in between the time they put their name on the list and the time their name gets called?
Well, basically from what you and I saw, people were staying in shelters. People were staying in tent cities too. Unfortunately, we passed a few tent cities, just
Mm.
huge, vast areas of flat ground with tents on them. And I suppose the few that have the means are, placing themselves in some sort of low cost housing.
Hmm. What was the name of that new policy, MPP, I've been hearing about?
Yeah, so MPP, M as in Mary, P as in Paul, P as in Paul stands for Migrant Protection Protocol, which is just it's a farce actually because it doesn't protect migrants. If anything, it puts them in more danger. MPP basically is the policy that now many of the migrants who present themselves at the border for a credible fear interview have to return to Mexico to wait for the adjudication of their asylum application. Whereas previously they would be taken into the United States and either they would be held in detention or potentially bonded out, and basically told to show up at immigration, courts for future hearings.
I
So
think uh, while we were at Otro Lado, they were telling us about how they keep migrants in these like very cold rooms for days at a time without any clothing, extra clothing.
yeah, exactly. So ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, basically has these kind of they're kind of detention centers. I don't think technically they're called detention centers, but they're known colloquially as ice boxes because it's so cold in there. And apparently, they take the outer layer of any migrant who goes in there and just leave them with the under layer. So when you and I were down there, what people were doing and what Al Otro Lado was basically advising people to do was to wear a jacket, a big coat, and
Mm.
nothing underneath it, so that would be the only layer they have, and so that couldn't be taken away from them. So it just shows how sad the situation is down there, and kind of inhumane conditions that are being experienced by a lot of intending asylees.
Yeah, it seems like a systematic way to pare down the pool of migrants. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's also my opinion, and I think a lot of people think the same. Which is basically, informally, it seems like the policy is to just make things so miserable for people who want to apply for asylum that they think twice about doing it.
Is there any side effects of the migrants having to remain in Mexico? Like, are there people exploiting the migrants as they wait?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's danger in the sense that many people are fleeing people or groups that have reach still in Mexico, whereas they wouldn't have reached in the United States. So they're still in danger by staying there. And
Hmm.
then, of course, there's the issue with all these unaccompanied minors who are running around. They came on the caravan, they're stuck south of the border, and they are totally open to
Hmm.
being preyed upon by human traffickers and drug gangs and basically nefarious elements. So yeah, it really stinks. And in fact, actually, the woman that I helped prepare for a credible fear interview when I was down there was a Honduran woman who was escaping domestic violence. She was
Hmm.
basically escaping her husband in Honduras, and she told me that the last time that she had spoken to him, he said that he's coming on the next caravan after her
Mm.
and he's going to kill her when he finds her. So she
Wow.
said, yeah, so she's basically living in fear that the next caravan that comes in is going to have her husband on it and he's going to kill her. So,
Hmm.
this is the importance of being having to stay in Mexico for longer than necessary to be able to apply for asylum versus being able to come into the country and be in the United States at least with temporary protection while the asylum application is
Hmm.
pending. Well, Al Otro Lado was very good about being organized and keeping an intake and a file on these different people. Obviously, not to turn over to any authorities, but basically to have information on them so that when they come back the second, third, fourth, fifth time, etc., that we're not starting from scratch with them. So, kudos to them, Luis down there who's running the show, and the army of volunteers that were there from all over the United States. So basically, we were filling out intake forms, gathering important information from them and about their potential asylum claim, why they think they might qualify for asylum. So basically, what we would do is get that information, and then we would try to combine it with our knowledge of asylum, the grounds for asylum, and how to kind of present an asylum claim. And we would basically consult with them about how to tell their story in a way that kind of checks off the boxes that are necessary in order to make a claim that has a chance of being successful.
What would be an example of a good asylum claim?
Well, basically, as you know, Drew, you were also there helping out. The five grounds for asylum relief are, persecution or fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political view, or membership in a particular social group. So, if basically, if you were a member of a political party that was the minority party and you were, you had a credible fear for your life based on that, that would be a potential asylum claim. If you are a gay man in a country that is very harsh on homosexuality, or persecutes homosexuals, that could be a basis for an asylum claim. So yeah, they're different. Obviously, if you're a racial minority in a country and you're persecuted based on that, or if you have a fear of persecution based on that, that could be an asylum claim. So those are a few examples. I do want to give a shout out to Al Otro Lado. So I think Al Otro Lado was a great organization, and they're doing a lot of good work there. And I'm going to actually turn it back on you and ask you, what did you think about our experience down there volunteering?
Yeah, I was impressed about how organized the whole operation was. Everyone is assigned their own little task to do for the day. They're organized into teams. They have childcare. They have someone marrying couples if they want to. They have food. They have a pet. They have we do meetings in the morning and in the evening to talk about how the day went.
Given the fact that everybody's a volunteer except for one person, that was incredible because you had people in managerial roles and team leader roles that were just volunteers down there for a few days or a few weeks. So I thought that was incredible, and obviously there was a great shared sense of purpose and basically kind of being a part of the same movement, which is to help provide relief to these people who are in dire straits. So yeah. I definitely recommend anybody who wants to volunteer with Al Otro Lado. You check them out, look them up online. And we just basically sent an email saying that we wanted to volunteer, and they gave us an intake form. And we filled out the intake form, and we basically got on a train and went down there. So it was pretty easy. Those other organizations, Drew, I just pulled them up, were World Central Kitchen is doing good work down there in Tijuana with the immigrants, and San Diego Border Angels. So people who are interested in volunteer opportunities, I think between those three organizations, Al Otro Lado, World Central Kitchen, and San Diego Border Angels, they may find a good place for them, something that fits their skills and their interests.
Yeah. So next time we go, what's your plan for next time that we go? Would you do anything differently?
Yeah, probably. As you know, we spoke, before this call about the fact that the one thing I would do a little bit different, or I would hope would go a little bit better, is that I wish I could have spent more time each day with families, preparing them for the credible fear interview. I thought that I would be able to prepare 5 to 7 families per day. I thought maybe it would take an hour each to prepare for the credible fear interview. And unfortunately, during the 2 days I was there, the number that I was presented with and able to help was much less than that. So if I had to do anything different, I may actually just volunteer part of the time with Al Otro Lado, and the other time maybe just go straight to the source, to the shelters or the tent cities, and basically introduce myself and start seeing who's going to be applying for asylum and help them directly.
So Parviz, there's this area called El Chaparral which we heard a lot about. Supposedly, it's
Right.
like the ground zero area for asylum claims. It's where all the migrants gather every morning.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So El Chaparral is just one of the pedestrian crossings between the United States and Mexico. It's on the southern side, so it's on the Mexican side. And basically, when we were talking about the list earlier, the way people find out whether their number is being called is that every morning a list is updated at El Chaparral and a number is posted on the wall. You took a picture of me next to that wall, and we'll put it up right here so people can see what it looks like. So I'm standing next to a piece of paper that just has the number 1819 written on it, just in hand. I mean, which just shows you like kind of how ridiculous and like informal this thing is. And that basically means that the last number that was called that day was 1819. So if you have a number that's roughly within 20 to 30 after 1819, basically the next 20 to 30 numbers or so would probably be called the next day. So people who have a number monitor basically that number. And when it comes close to their number, they start showing up in the morning to see if that's going to be the day that they're taken in to give their credible fear interview.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back in the United States that way. And Drew, what did you think about crossing into Mexico and going back out? How was your experience?
Yeah, it was actually much easier than I thought it would be. I thought when coming back in the United States, I was worried about they were gonna like check my bags and all this stuff. Not that I have anything to hide, but they just checked my cards and I walked right in. And I was nervous about timing. I thought it was gonna take for like an hour, but you assured me it was only gonna take like 5 to 10 minutes, and you were right. Crossing into Mexico was the same thing. They
Right.
ask you a couple questions, you fill out a form, and then that's it. And then you're in the country.
Right, right. And Drew, of course, you and I live in Los Angeles, so we took Amtrak from LA Union
Yeah.
Station down to San Diego. Um, it cost us $35 each way on Amtrak, and then we took a tram from downtown San Diego to just north of the border, and then we walked
Hmm.
across the border. The tram, I think, was $2.50 each way. So overall, it was roughly, I guess, what is that? $75 total.
Hmm.
I thought it was pretty easy and painless to get down there and get back. What did you think?
Yeah, exactly. And then the downtown Tijuana area is only about a mile away from the border. So you can walk across the border into downtown if you want to. The whole thing is really easy, cost efficient, didn't take that long. So I definitely would want to go back to Tijuana just like on a random weekend just to hang out there. So now I know that it's possible to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Drew, anything else before we wrap this up?
That's it. I
Okay,
had a
that's
good time volunteering with you.
good. I did too. I'm really glad you came down. I think it was pretty rewarding, and we were able to do some good. Shout out to Al Otro Lado. Shout out to Luis Guerra, World Central Kitchens, San Diego Border Angels, and everybody else that we met down there. We met a lot of cool people that were volunteering. So
For
shout
sure.
out and keep up the good work.